so I sat there after 2 perfectly fun years of fighting the good fight, having the time of my life, meeting friends from all around the country. And now I go on the speaking circuit, and the weekend that Rick Perry announced that he was going to run, and I was asked to go to that event in South Carolina, which would be totally fun, I was asked to go to St. Louis to speak at the MoveOnUp.org conference. And no, that's not Move On. This is Move On Up. You've never heard of this group, but you should hear about it. And this is a black conservative group. And I said to them, I'm going to find you allies, and we're going to have to find a way to fight this thing together. And we're going to have to figure out how to create alliances. And we're going to have to find out what true diversity means in this country and stop pitting us against each other. It's the politics of fear that work against black people by the mainstream media, and they needed to portray us as racist. And that's why I fought so hard when the N-word was accused. They knew with Obamacare polling the night before they voted for it in a completely partisan way. And the bill wasn't even read by the people that, admittedly, this unconstitutional bill was not read by the people who demanded, who passed it. Nobody knew what was inside of it. And we were racist for saying, shouldn't you read it? And shouldn't you follow the Constitution? And I said, if the Tea Party was a threat the day before the passing of this unpopular, partisan, unconstitutional, and not read bill, it's going to be incredibly unpopular the day after. And so I'm a tactician and I'm a strategist, and I predicted that they would do something. I didn't know what it was. And so the day that the Tea Party organized 40,000 strong to appear the day before to protest, something interesting happened. I don't know if you've ever been to DC and walked on the Capitol grounds, but there's an intricate, air-conditioned, underground set of hallways that take you from the Senate and the House offices to the Capitol. So when the 40,000 strong were out there protesting Obamacare, it was pretty interesting that we saw the most controversial members of the progressive caucus of the Democratic Party walking through the crowd, not going underneath, on a day that it made no sense for them to do that. And we saw that the people that were doing it, to a great extent, were chosen cynically because of their race. The Congressional Black Caucus walked through there. And as anybody remembers how Jesse Jackson Jr., who almost paid for his seat in Illinois, just a side note, and how he walked through the crowd like he was paranoid, like he was walking through, I'm gonna find you, you evil lurkers. He gave it away. He gave it away that he was not there to casually walk through. He was there to find evidence that they could use on YouTube, and that Katie Couric and Brian Williams and Charlie Gibson could go out there and say the Tea Party's racist, and we finally found the proof. They tried to instigate something. And then they reported that it happened, when it didn't happen. And the sequence of events played out very strange, but I started to notice on Twitter from my friends in the mainstream media that an incident had happened against civil rights legend John Lewis, and that the N-word was hurled. And without any corroboration, it became the truth. And it became the biggest story of the day. And they got what they wanted because the mainstream media ran with it absent any evidence. And so I started to write on Twitter immediately that Nancy Pelosi was on the shoulders of Harry Reid in front of my house, calling me a kike. Okay? And I said, it happened. I'm not kidding you. I don't know why they're in front of my house on the west side of LA and they're doing this, but they're doing it for some odd reason. Will somebody please report this with the level of concern that you're reporting this against the Tea Party? A half hour after this incident occurred, a half hour, to me, was all the proof that I needed to know that these troublemakers were making trouble in a moment that it was predictable that they were going to make trouble. And that was, if they were surrounded, as they claimed to be, and that the police had to pull them away, as they claimed to be, there's no way in hell, in a post-9/11 America, that Nancy Pelosi would walk through that same crowd with a gavel from the incredible shrinking woman, like a 7-foot gavel, with a shit-eating grin through the same crowd. And so I called their bluff and I offered $100,000. And I said, according to a tape that we later got from a reporter on the ground, Carrie Pickett, from the Washington Times, Andre Carson, the one who said that the Tea Party, just last week, said the Tea Party wants to hang black people. Andre Carson is on tape. This is exactly what he said. We were walking out of the Cannon building, and a group of 400 surrounded us. And they started to chant. It was a mob. It was a mob, he said. 400 people, a mob. And they surrounded us. It was like a page out of a time machine. I don't even know what that is. But he said it. It's a strange metaphor. A strange mixed metaphor. It was a page out of a time machine trying to invoke Selma, which coincidentally, Nancy Pelosi's talking points on the importance of passing that bill coincided with the narrative of race in America over a bill that has nothing to do with race. The accusation fit the narrative perfectly. The framing of the bill as similar to the Civil Rights Act was all built into the construct of making this a race battle, artificially and quite evilly, if I don't say so myself. And so he continues to talk, and he said, there were 400 people surrounding me, and they started chanting the N-word. Reporter asked, how many people? He says, I don't know, about 15 people, N-word 15 times. 15 people in a crowd of 400, give or take 3, maybe it's 18. Maybe it's 12. But a mob of people are yelling the N-word in plain sight in a crowd. 400 people. How many people are in here? Does anybody know?
350 seats.
350 seats. Let's just say there were 350 people there, not the 400 that he said. How many people here, and this isn't a public event. What is a public event? I'm already lying to you and I shouldn't be trusted from here on out. How many people here have a device that can record video or audio with you? Will you please raise your hand? Can we not state that that's the vast majority of us? In a crowd of 400 people at an event that was much more public and had a public media appeal of epic proportion, 400 people surround, and all 400 people are complicit in this act. I know from defense purposes alone that the Tea Party could be destroyed by the one N-word happening. So of those 400 people, I would say that at least 350 are prepared to deck the person who hurls the N-word, okay? To tackle them. And to expose them for being what we kept finding out. AstroTurf, plants. They wanted the racist incident so badly that they created websites that told them how to infiltrate tea parties in order to put signs up that they could go put on YouTube and disseminate and say, see, we told you they were a bunch of bigots. But there wasn't I said, I know the people that I've traveled the country to see, and they're not racist. They would never do this in a million years, and I'm willing to put my money that I don't have where my mouth is. And so I offered $100,000, not for evidence, to play to Congressman Carson's 15. But I said, if you can show me a video that this happened once, one N-word, and you get $100,000. And they shut up immediately. And they're like, who is that guy? And they shut up. And we sent a letter. I said to the Tea Party, your enemy is smart. They know that there is no central organizing mechanism at the Tea Party, and you don't have the right to say the event didn't happen, nor do you, nor do you. The Tea Party of Virginia doesn't have a right to say it didn't happen, so nobody could act with force, and they knew that time would be of the essence. And so when nobody publicly denied it, it became the truth. And so I went and I combined as many Tea Parties as fast as I possibly could. And I said, let's create a Tea Party Federation. And we sent out a letter to the Congressional Black Caucus and condemned all racism and said, if we'd like to investigate with you this incident. And we sent a letter to them, and they ignored it. They ignored it, they ignored it, they ignored it, and Emmanuel Cleaver, who was one of the people who did this, wrote an essay in the local paper in Kansas City for McClatchy within a week after I did that, and realized that this was starting to go the other way, and they wouldn't, he wrote a letter not addressing the accusation, but stating, oh boy, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? I'm going to talk longer, whatever you do. You're going to have to tackle me.
In the good old summertime, in the good old